So I think we all know by now that we're sort of living in a golden age of comic book adaptations on television. Shows like Arrow, The Flash, The Walking Dead, Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., upcoming shows like Preacher and Lucifer, The Walking Dead spin-off. Now, of course, anytime a comic book property is adapted to any medium, the question of how faithful it is to the source material always comes up. And while these shows are pretty faithful, if you ask me, the most faithful comic book show on TV right now isn't even based on a comic book. But it's based on similar ideas and themes, and it's found a way to do comic book style storytelling on TV every week for over 20 years. I'm speaking, of course, of Monday Night Raw. Yeah, we're talking about wrestling today. Let me get this out of the way before we get started. Yes, of course I know professional wrestling isn't real. There's always that one guy in the crowd who loves to remind wrestling fans that it's either fake or not a real sport. There's usually the same guy who likes to remind kids that Santa Claus isn't real. But to call it fake implies that the whole thing is completely fictional and that nobody gets hurt. And that's just not true. Not only do these people get bruised and battered, but sometimes they can get really f***ed up even though they're trying their best to minimize the amount of damage they're doling out. I prefer to say that it's scripted, because it is. There are writers who write a script who determine a winner, and everybody's friends in real life. And it's the writing I specifically want to talk about, because more than any other show on television, Monday Night Raw, Thursday Night SmackDown, and whatever the hell TNA does nowadays, have nailed comic book style storytelling. And I'm not just talking about the fact that there are heroes and villains with outlandish gimmicks. I'm talking specifically about how they tell a story. Characters like Batman or Superman have been around since the 40s, and every month since their debut, writers and artists have come together to try and find different ways to tell new and exciting and fresh stories to entice old and new readers alike. Now, the WWE has pretty much been doing the exact same thing. They just add and keep new characters a lot more than DC or Marvel do. They air at minimum 2 shows a week every week for the entire year. That's about 104 shows. And every week they have to tell a new chapter in a character's story. It can be a self-contained incident or a part of the larger overarching story. And every month they have a pay-per-view event where all the major story points come together and reach their next turning point. Or, in the case of the Big Four events, their conclusion. And much like how something like Secret Wars is going to have major ramifications and status quo changes to the Marvel Universe, something like WrestleMania or this weekend's SummerSlam is going to have major ramifications and status quo changes to the WWE Universe. Not to mention all the spin-off and one-shot shows like Saturday Night Main Event and Tribute for the Troops. They even do house shows, which are essentially non-televised wrestling matches in local areas. This is essentially their extended universe, because sometimes storylines can bleed into them. Hell, they even have their own indie division with NXT. If the WWE were DC Comics, then NXT would be their Vertigo. A place where people can go to get a little bit more mature, serious entertainment than the flashy gimmicks of their mainstream sister counterpart. Wrestling writers even have to suffer some of the same problems as comic book writers do, like editorial mandate. If Joe Quesada were to say that Spider-Man and Mary Jane aren't to be married anymore, then that's it. That's what's going to happen. If Vince McMahon were to say that Roman Reigns is going to win the Royal Rumble, then that's it. That's what's going to happen. Hell, the WWE even practices retcon on a regular basis. Take the Katie Vick storyline. This was a story that said that Kane lost his virginity to an actual corpse. That happened. But if you were to look something like that up, you'd really only find it on fan sites. The WWE doesn't talk about it, like it never happened. Or that weird 2-week period where Daniel Bryan was part of the Wyatt family. Nobody liked it, and they quietly swept it under the rug and pretend it never happened. And if you still don't believe me that the WWE likes to retcon their past, just ask Hulk Hogan. Too soon? Hell, they even do intercompany crossovers. RoboCop once showed up to save Sting back when the WCW was still around. And this Sunday night, Stephen Amell from Arrow is going to be wrestling Stardust. To which I just have to say, let him wrestle in his Green Arrow costume, otherwise, what's the point? And really, it's kind of surprising that there isn't that much more of a crossover between wrestling fans and comic book fans. They exist, I know they exist, but not in the same way that there's a crossover between, say, Sherlock and Doctor Who fans. Which is a shame, because I think they really should. If you like one, you're bound to like the other in some capacity. And if you aren't, that's fine. But maybe after watching this video, you'll be a little more open to something like WWE Superstars the comic book. Because that was just fantastic. What do you guys think about wrestling and its comic book style storytelling? Do you watch the occasional wrestling match every now and then? Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet. Like if you like, subscribe if you really like, share this video with a friend. Thank you all so much for watching, And that's the bottom line. If you smell, woo, Nature Boy, catchphrase, catchphrase, catchphrase. Ooh yeah. From here, it's now a question of how to actually store your comics. And that, my friend, is where all of these come in. These are short boxes. They usually hold between 150 and 175 comics, depending on whether or not you bag and board them. About this big.
They're saying that he worships Darth Vader.
That's interesting.
That, I think I kind of like got that from the concept art where he's holding Vader's helmet.
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious that he like was at least
He's
interested.
Yeah.